Hey, and we're back!
Welcome back to round 2 of Mox Boarding House's Legacy 1K. This is round 2, and we are excited to bring you more fast-paced Legacy action. In our previous round, you've noticed that we were down for a little bit longer than 3 minutes. I think it was about 15 or 20 minutes, and the reason why is because we had a lot of Legacy matches that were wrapping up, a lot of matches that have gone to time. I saw a few lands decks. I saw...
they're good to start whenever, just let us know when they're ready so we can have the time.
We saw a lot of lands decks and a lot of Miracles decks in the room, and so, certainly those decks usually go a little bit longer. They're a little bit more attrition-based control decks, and hopefully right now we're going to go ahead and bring you some fast-paced Delver action.
They're both on
Aggro Control, and they're both on Grixis Delver. So we're going to see a Grixis Delver mirror, and hopefully we'll be able to highlight some of the intricacies of the...
Okay.
What's that? Yeah. Some of the intricacies behind the Delver mirror matchup. There's not necessarily Stifle being run in either deck. That being said, there's a lot of 4-ofs, a lot of Cabal therapies, and we're in for a good one, guys. We're in for a treat.
All right, so we're going to take it to the match right now. They are resolving mulligans right now. It looks like they both went down to 6.
Interesting. Okay.
So
Fantastic.
Here we go. So Elliot Fisher on the right. I'm updating those live, so that's going to actually reflect what they are in a moment here.
Yeah. So certainly both players are playing Charlotte's. Both players are playing a Grixis Delver build. What's interesting though is they do have certain twists and turns that make their deck a little bit different. It looks like Elliot Fisher is running a main deck Trinium Nemesis, which is certainly the most powerful card, most powerful creature in either player's deck.
It's really interesting because in talking with a lot of like Delver, I was about to say tryhards, but I know that's totally not the case.
I mean, that's totally fine because there are guys who like to who play specifically Grixis Delver or Delver variants. I think another one that comes to mind is James Johnson, perhaps the flag bearer of the Delver deck.
Seeing a lot of the changes that people are coming forward with in terms of Delver, where you are going to kind of this grindier game, where you are kind of going to this to almost like even more of just like a mid-range build, especially so we'll use Rug in this case as an example. They're playing less Tarmogoyfs.
Yeah.
They're playing much more harder I've seen
more Spell Snare.
Yeah, they're playing more Spell Snare. They're actually taking out. I mean, Stifle is no longer a real plan. The other thing is I'm starting to see some James is really big on main deck, just the basic counterspell. A lot of
very interesting.
It's very interesting, but it's the really crazy thing is
and a strong departure from originally what the deck was originally about.
But and so normally it would just be like, oh, okay, it's just somebody adjusting. But then you start looking at some of the other similar deck lists around, and that's kind of where the direction of the actual deck and where it's going.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool thing to look at, watching this deck evolve, because it used to be the boogeyman for the longest time.
Yeah, and it was trying to come in low and in control.
Yeah.
And we see some mirroring fetch lands from both players. If I'm Shawn, I'm thinking that my opponent's playing Miracles. If I am Elliot, I think my opponent is playing, and this is kind of the cat's out of the bag at this point. I mean, Wasteland plus blue fetch really just means Delver.
Yeah.
So he's going to understand right away what's going on. What's interesting about Shawn's play right here is he's going ahead and there's 0-0. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
In matchup, so we'll go ahead and get that adjusted. But you'll see that Shawn went ahead and deployed the Wasteland. And I think the only reason why he did that is because he doesn't really have access to any other mana source. So we'll see him deploy, and he is the first person to jump on the Young Pyromancer train, and it looks like a Gitaxian Probe just got played, and a token made for Shawn. So Shawn's, when you have that first token being made when Young Pyromancer hits the table, the Delver deck is always really pleased with that. So now we got a Lightning Bolt played in response, and a Daze that gets parried, so the Lightning Bolt gets parried by the Daze, and more tokens getting generated by Shawn. So what's really tough, though, what's really tough about this current position right now is, Shawn has a big board being developed. He's got a live Pyromancer, and Elliot Fisher is just going to be kind of playing this catch-up game. That Wasteland from Shawn is going to be massive when he's able to untap. And if you look at Shawn's hand, he actually has no other colored sources, no other colored mana. So I think at this point, Elliot's considering Force Will, and what he doesn't know is that Shawn has a Force Will back in his own hand. So there's just spells flying right away, in turn 2 of this match.
And with a Grixis matchup like that, it's definitely they definitely have to find themselves being a lot more aggressive at the gate, because it's one thing, especially when you see a Pyromancer online. You can definitely be much more on the beatdown plan, where you don't necessarily want to just go ham, or where you do want to go ham. Sorry.
Right. So we see right now, Elliot has an access to his own Pyromancer, but you see how important that turn 1 play was. 2 spells have already been cast on Shawn's side of the table, and 2 1/1 elementals have been developed. Those 1/1 elementals, of course, are very strong in blocking enemy pyromancers or any enemy creatures that are being deployed by Elliot Fisher. And we... So I mean, right now, if Elliot just went ahead and drew the Underground Sea, and I think he's, if I was Elliot, I would certainly be interested in holding up mana for, like, having mana for days. I guess Days is uncastable at this point, so it really doesn't matter. But Shawn looks like he's holding back a Force of Will, and this is one of the things that's tough about fighting Young Pyromancer. If you fight Young Pyromancer on the stack, he doesn't get tokens every time he counters.
Right.
But when you fight Young Pyromancer in play, the reason why it's so strong is that every time Shawn goes to defend Young Pyromancer, it's another 1/1. It's another token, right?
Yep.
And so this is just an unbelievably powerful start for Shawn. He's got a lot of creatures in play, and I think that Elliot's going to go ahead and force back, and that's almost certainly the case. But now, the big difference here is Shawn's already gone ahead and developed those 3 tokens, and Elliot really doesn't have anything to say in play right now. It looks like he's going to go ahead and play a dual land right here, most certainly the fetch land. But that second Volcanic Island in hand is just kind of a dead card right now. That being said, Shawn, if I'm Shawn right now, I'm relatively pleased snapping off the Wasteland, and he's going to go ahead and Brainstorm now. And I don't like the Brainstorm now, because I don't think he gets a lot of advantage, or incrementally or otherwise. The card quality that he has, he really needs to find a fetch to make his Brainstorm work, but it looks like he's found a Daze, and he's found a Ponder, so a big game in its own right. I think that, he's going to go ahead and keep the Ponder, keep the Daze. If he cracks the Wasteland here, he's going to have Daze up for any enemy Pyromancers that Elliot's going to play, and Elliot's almost certainly going to play a Pyromancer on his turn, so this is just absolutely haymaker after haymaker going on from both sides.
And it's crazy when you just look at this board state, and you wouldn't tell.
It almost looks like the game just started, but for some reason Shawn has started the game with 3 elementals on his side of the board. And so that's just kind of unreasonable, but it really goes to show you that,
that's kind of how,
how
it works.
In this matchup, that's kind of what's important. So we see Elliot has gone ahead and played, found his own Volcanic Island, and he's going to go ahead and try to get rolling with his own Pyromancer, but, those 3 tokens, that incremental advantage is just, again, it's so powerful. And this Daze is going to be huge from Shawn. It's going to be, I think this might actually be the game right here, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, definitely something that we wanted to see more of, but...
so Grixis goes ahead and draws, and he's going to go ahead and jam the Young Pyromancer, and Shawn has just had it every time. And this is one of those things where when you play against these aggro control decks, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot you can do.
Yep.
This is kind of like the James Johnson, where does he have it? Of course he does.
Of course he does.
He always has it, right?
You gotta remember, it's the first rule.
Right. Do you have it? Yeah, you do. I mean, what's kind of crazy about it is Shawn went ahead and Brainstormed there as well, and the Brainstorm was strong, the Wasteland was strong. All of the cards he's made, every single decision that he's made has been the correct decision.
Yep.
So, and a Delver drawn for Elliot, and what's interesting about this now is I think gotta believe that the Delver is actually going to be in defense mode. I mean, 2 toughness versus 1/1s is actually a pretty big game. That being said, it's going to be on Shawn right now to figure out how to answer this Delver. And a Ponder being fired off here, and the top 3 is going to be, oh wow, and is that a Chain Light? That's a Lightning Bolt, right? It can't be Chain Lightning. Let's check it out.
Let's check that out.
Shawn Tabrizi. Yeah, that's a Lightning Bolt. There's no way he's running Chain Lightning. He's running a Dismember as well. And what's also pretty cool is both decks are playing, Elliot's deck is playing Grimag Angler. And of course, and I guess, so Shawn's is also playing, they're both playing a 2-of. And Grimag Angler is just so powerful right now. I mean, it gets around Counterbalance, it gets around Abrupt Decay, it gets around Lightning Bolt.
I mean, and in the case of people wanting to play Tasker, it gets around Caracas.
Right.
That was the original argument. Where everybody just that ability just seems so powerful.
That's
right. Well, then I just play Caracas.
Yeah, Caracas bounce. And what's crazy about it is all the Delve cards that you used to play it the first time, they're no longer there. We see most certainly. We see a Ponder drawn for Elliot here. And this is probably one of his best top decks that he can run here. Ponder certainly gives him the best card quality advantage off the top 3 cards, or a 4th card if he wants. Also, his Delver's already flipped. So, oh wow, and this is just how quickly this game can shift. We see a Grimag Angler in the grip for Elliot Fisher right here, and Shawn is just looking at Lightning Bolt right now.
Yep.
That is, and the damage advantage that Shawn has had, and it's flipped on, the advantage is really flipped on a dime. This is showing how powerful the Grixis deck really can be from both angles, right?
Yeah.
Whether it goes first or whether it goes second. And Shawn right here is going to have to figure out how to stretch, 8 life between his 3/1/1s and his Lightning Bolt in hand. And I think that Shawn has already casted, I don't think he's casted a Lightning Bolt just yet, but a Wasteland coming down from Elliot Fisher. And he's going to pass. I think right now he's going to try to protect his Grimmack Angler. He does not want anything to happen to it. Lightning Bolt being cast from Shawn, and it's basically what he's doing is he's trading 3 damage for 3 damage. The Lightning Bolt taking out the Delver, and then they swing in with the 3 Elementals. You know, it's one way or the other. We see a quick crack and a Grimmack Angler being deployed, and this is most certainly the biggest man in town. So he's going to delve it all the way out. He's going to correctly leave up the Volcanic Island for days, and I really like that line. I think the only way he can lose at this point is to a daze, but Shawn right now is going to have to figure out how to find 1 damage, which sounds crazy.
Yep.
The Alpha Strike from the 3 tokens is going to deal 2. The next attack is going to deal 1, right? His opponent's going to be at 1, and so... I think he drew. He most certainly drew a blue card. I'm not certain if it's like I think it's a Spell Pierce, which I do like a lot. But that being said, this Grimmack Angler is going to be delegated to block almost certainly. I think Shawn's Volcanic Island is untapped, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the end of. Okay. Interesting. Oh, and a Deathrite Shaman drawn for Shawn, and that's most certainly going to be able to give him the reach. What's really interesting about the Grixis Delver deck, and I think the reason why it's kind of come to the forefront of popularity, is it really likes to leverage a lot of cards that, classic cards that are good, and kind of newer cards that are showing how strong they actually can be. I mean, Deathrite Shaman is just such a powerful card. It really has been for a long time. Gives you good mana advantage, gives you reach as well.
Yep.
And when you combine Deathrite Shaman and Lightning Bolt together, you really get a potent deck. I mean, obviously, those 3 colors combined are all Jundi, but when your deck is centered around blue, it allows you to get good stability off of cards like Ponder.
And it's really, I mean, because it's one of those arguments that you see very common where it's just like, well, you have very fair decks like Abzan and Jund to beat the blue decks.
Right.
I mean, like, Grixis is not, traditionally,
okay.
well... That's Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, Lightning Bolt for Shawn, and Elliot Fisher. Yeah. Elliot actually found a Lightning Bolt for the Deathrite Shaman. Lightning Bolt found for Shawn Tabrizi, and just it was a matter of top decks, and Shawn found a second Lightning Bolt.
All right, so looking at these sideboards.
There's.
Let's see how similar they are. So.
Right. You got an Engineer play? I got an Engineer play. Engineer Explosives? You got Engineer Explosives?
I got an EE.
You got an EE. All right, you got a Cabal Therapy?
I have a Cabal Therapy.
You have 1?
Yep, I have 1.
You have a Dark Blast?
I do have a Dark Blast.
Wow, you have a 4th Bolt?
I do not have a 4th Bolt.
4th Bolt, big game for Elliot Fisher. That card is certainly, for Shawn Tabrizi. That card is certainly coming in. You have a Pithing Needle?
I have no Pithing Needle.
No Pithing Needle. All right, you have a Pyroblast. Let's compare notes.
Oh, no, I have 2. Yep.
2 Pyroblast, most certainly. Surgical Extraction.
I have
maybe.
2.
Ancient Grudge?
I have 2. You have 1.
I have 1.
We both have 2 Baleful Strix.
Baleful Strix?
We both have a Winter War.
A Winter War. That is very bizarre. And are you ready? 2 Painful Truths?
It looks like he might be running 1.
Okay, 1. It's a very a questionable number.
We can double check that, but I am running 1 as well.
I can just count it up and see how many there's.
Oh, sure.
Right, yeah.
We are both running a Sulfuric Vortex.
Wow, so almost an identical sideboard from both players.
It looks like the difference is in here.
It is going to be Painful. Do you have a Painful Truth?
I do have a Painful Truth.
Wow.
You don't have a Dread of Night.
Yeah, it's Dread of Night versus
4th Bolt. I think that's the difference.
Wow.
All right, then.
That's a 14-card, almost identical mirror. What's really interesting is that this deck has True Name Nemesis, and this deck has Vendilion Click.
Yeah.
Dismember? You have a Dismember?
I do have a Dismember.
I have a Dismember. Do you have a Spell Pierce?
I do not have a Spell Pierce.
So, you do have a Spell Pierce.
I do have a Spell Pierce. I'm reading off of Elliot's. Jordan's is reading off of Shawn.
Right, so an almost perfect mirror. I think that they're mirrored in about 73 cards.
Which is funny because I don't think these two know each other.
Yeah, almost certainly not. But I think at this point what it's really shown is that how optimized the lists really are.
Yeah.
They're very close to being optimal. They're very close to getting down to what's important, the business cards of the deck. I mean, and like we were saying about Deathrite Shaman earlier, is that it's such a powerful card, and it really gives you access to good sideboard cards and good main deck hate, graveyard hate, and otherwise good reach to go out and kill your opponent outside of combat. So it's really they're certainly nice cards to have right now, and I gotta believe that both players are certainly familiar with how their opponent's decks are going to function.
Yep.
I think the real question here is, do you like Cabal Therapy right now, or do you not like it?
I don't like it. Well, are we talking about it for this matchup, or are we talking about it in general?
In the matchup.
In the matchup, I don't like it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard though, because you are playing against a deck that has significantly a bunch of 4/1s.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you play that and name the Young Pyromancer and you just strip Pyromancers, like what are they going to do? It's so tough, right? Like, Young Pyromancer, you saw how big of a game it was for Shawn. It was basically, I mean, I think the Young Pyromancer itself dealt about, it must have been tons of damage. It must have been like at least 14, right? Lightning Bolt was like the final 3, and then the 3 cracks from Elliot Fisher's a couple Force of Wills and his fetch lands, so. Just an insane amount of damage, and the fact that Shawn was able to deploy his earlier really speaks volumes about how good the card is. So, I was really glad that we got to see both players maneuver around and play Magic and not get wastelanded out.
Right.
That was actually like a really important.
Well, I mean, and that's always been the great thing about Delver Mirrors, where they've always just been like a really good, like they're a very skill-intensive matchup, and it's it's a really great testament to how good of a player you are to play this kind of mirror. I mean,
most certainly,
it's definitely a really nice chess match.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think what it really shows is that, you know, when Elliot Fisher's on the draw, even the difference of one turn, he has to play so much different. He has to play so defensive, and he did a good job. He almost stabilized, I think, but it was just like he was maybe like 1 or 2 cards off. He was 1 or 2 turns off, which is really too bad. I think if he deployed his Grimag Angler maybe a turn earlier, he would have been in better shape. Right? He can block, and certainly blocking there, it takes away a third of the power of the board state. And that decision that he made to not deploy the Grimag Angler, that was like, it was just kind of unfortunate. He really needed to get it in there. But that being said, you know, you can't play around everything. Sometimes you have to ask your opponent if they have it or not, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Of course, at that point, I think he felt like his opponent just had it all. Right? He even had the Lightning Bolt at the end of the game, unfortunately. So we see the mulligans being resolved for both players. It looks like Elliot is going to be his deck a relatively good shuffle here. Cuts and draws, and we are underway.
Alright.
Wow. Cataxian Probe, Grip of Lands, looks like a lot of lands. Ooh, and a Dark Blast for Elliot Fisher. I like
excellent. That card is, I love that card.
Yeah, very nice. A Deathrite Shaman as well, so I think Elliot is most certainly going to be on the Keep Marinos here. And there's a lot of tricks you can do with Dark Blast. If you were to deploy Dark Blast on his upkeep, he can dredge Dark Blast and then play it again to kill any amount of Deathrite Shamans.
I've done that trick a few times.
Oh, most certainly. You know, it is powerful and something that can't be treated too lightly here. We see a Grimag Angler being drawn for Shawn, and that's probably going to be his real ticket to victory right here. It's going to be kind of a heads-up play on Elliot's side to really keep down the graveyard of Shawn and see if he can go ahead and deploy that Grimag at any point in time.
Yep.
Shawn's playing cautiously here, and rightfully so. The amount of wastelands that both decks pack means that you can just simply draw a hand that's dead to your opponent right away.
And that's always something that you have to just assume is going to happen with this kind of matchup.
Right.
So,
yeah, sometimes keeping a lot of lands, you'll try to bait your opponent into wastelanding you.
yeah, especially
You're like, oh no, don't wasteland me, please.
Definitely.
And then when you do, you're really excited.
Here's another one.
Oh, very nice. Yeah,
that's an excellent play there by Elliot.
Yeah, and Elliot, you know, having running Deathrite Shamans really just pressures the amount of removal that Shawn has and overloads it. Shawn would like to aim those Lightning Bolts at Young Pyromancers or something other than Deathrite Shaman. That being said, Deathrite Shaman is such a big early game advantage that he really needs to take care of them in order to have a chance at extending into the mid game. And we see it his own Deathrite Shaman coming down for Shawn. So we have a Deathrite Shaman mirror, of course, and we'll see if Elliot's going to go ahead and do the Dark Blast trick here. It looks like he's not. Oh, he might. No, he's not. Draws Gitaxian Probe, and Elliot actually, his hand is a little watery right now. He's got 2 redraws, he's got 2 fetch lands, and is that in a Dark Blast. So there's not a whole lot of action on his side of the board. And for Shawn, we see he's got a Wasteland. It looks like, and a Grimag Angler, of course, and a couple more, and a Cabal Therapy. So he kept the Cabal Therapy in.
Interesting.
I mean, very interesting.
It's now in this one when it is a matter of just like who's going to have more cards in hand. I guess you can definitely see the value in it, but like especially in this matchup, it's a simple matter of like Cabal Therapy is completely predicated around having the Young Pyromancer backup and everything ready to go. And if you don't have it, Cabal Therapy is just not a great card.
Yeah. I think if you don't have a good heads up as to what your opponent has in hand, like if you don't have a oh, here we get a good look at what's in hand for Shawn.
So he also kept in the Cabal Therapies.
Right.
He's got the Painful Truths, which,
it's a nice card here
pay
because
2, draw 2. Like
or pay 3. He's got the fetch land to find the red source. I mean, Deathrite Shaman really gets anything.
Well, sure.
He wants,
right?
Wait,
I forgot about the Deathrite Shaman.
I mean, making white is kind of goofy, but drawing 3 is pretty awesome. So the Painful Truth is certainly going to allow Shawn to keep up with his opponent. and the card advantage there, and we see a redraw from Elliot Fisher finds Ponder. So Ponder is certainly going to be important in figuring out what Elliot wants to do with his future turns, and Shawn, it looks like, is going to be kind of trying to figure out what his opponent has. He's probably going to navigate his next turn with a Ponder as well. So, both players certainly trying to find their pathway to victory here in the early stages of this game, and we see that this game, this is actually like turn 3 or turn 4 in actuality, but Wasteland really allows the Delver deck to play inside turns 1 through 3 for the duration of the entire game.
Yeah.
It is possible that, oh wow, and a Young Pyromancer found for Elliot Fisher. So almost certainly that's going to get put to the top, drawn, and cast right away. I don't believe that Shawn has actually kept in Daze. A lot of times the Grixis Delver decks, like we were talking about in the last game, they have different matchups, or they have different card sideboards based off of if they're on the play or the draw. And Daze is a good card when you're on the play. It's an awful card when you're on the draw.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really bad. I don't know if you've ever dazed, and I'm sure you have, because I have done it a million times, where you're on the draw, your opponent tries to play counterbalance on turn 2, your first play was Ponder, and you have to daze it. And you're like, oh my god, yeah. It almost feels like at that point you lost.
It feels so bad.
It really does. It feels like at that point you've lost the game. You ponder, you're like, you're ready to go, and it's like, it's really just not happening. And we see, so Elliot's gone ahead and deployed his own Deathrite Shaman to the battlefield. So he's got multiple Deathrites now, and the Deathrite war is real. It is something that's important and tough to deal with right now. So, Shaman here, I gotta believe he's gonna start attacking Elliot's graveyard as well. Both players know that Grimag Angler is a very, very real threat that can come down and take over the game. So, top cards. There's an Abrupt Decay, a Ponder. Is that a decay?
I think that's
It's hard to say. It's next to the Ponder, right? And a fetch land as well.
Yeah, I think it's a Polluted Delta Ponder. That might have been a Spell Pierce.
So he kept in Spell Pierce, which I think is a little questionable, but
I do like it better than Daze in this matchup.
Oh, most certainly. Yeah. Daze is, especially when you're on the draw. Yeah, Daze is almost unplayable. Is extraordinarily unplayable. Force Spike, what can you do? And so Shawn has gone ahead and drawn. So he has drawn that Spell Pierce. He does. I can't see it now. The glare from the windows is certainly inhibiting our ability to figure out what cards are.
I'll try to fix that in a moment here.
Yeah, please, don't worry. We'll get it fixed for round 3. But we see another fetch land here, and I gotta believe Shawn's gonna go ahead and try to deploy at least maybe some semblance of a board. If not, he's gonna go ahead and try to figure out what to do with this Cabal Therapy. He's gonna go ahead and eat another land and deploy Cabal Therapy here. And I think this is going to be a real test of the game. This is probably the most skill-intensive game that you can play right here.
Yeah.
What do you name with Cabal Therapy? If I'm Shawn, what do I lose to? What do I lose to in this moment?
I think man.
It's hard because
he
has no heads up.
So in this kind of with this kind of matchup, like, I think you only have 2 options if you really want to keep it in, and that's try to keep your opponent off of all the cantrips you can. So
right.
Or just going straight for the Young Pyromancer. So I think your two most accurate calls here in this case would probably be like Young Pyromancer or even just Brainstorm. I think those are two really good calls there.
Yeah, most certainly. I think Young Pyromancer was most certainly named. And what's really nice about Elliot is I thought he kept it on top of his deck, but I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, he just drew a Gitaxian. He probably drew the Gitaxian probe there. Or he did draw a Gitaxian probe.
Yeah.
There is an argument to be made to just do that. Now draw it, crack it.
Oh, so he knows if the coast is clear, right? If he's gonna lose his what's it called? If he's gonna lose his Young Pyromancer.
Yeah. And
Young Pyromancer is such a big game. It's so important to the matchup. So Young Pyromancer here is gonna be worth a bunch of potential damage. All the tokens that it's being made are really strong. Going to go ahead and eat a land as well, and Young Pyromancer's going to need deployed to the field. No Spell Snare in hand for Shawn, and that's going to be relatively tough. So Elliot knows that there's no cards in hand for Shawn that can actually counter this. He's going to go ahead and just resolve it and shortcut through his into his next Gitaxian probe.
Yep.
So we'll see if he remembers the trigger. He's going to need to remember the trigger for his.
Oh,
there you go. Oh, Shawn's helping him out.
Good guy,
Shawn. Good guy to Brizzle for sure. And the noose is certainly tightening on Shawn right here. He needs to figure out a way for his spells to be relevant and viable. And we see a Daze in hand for Elliot Fisher, so he's certainly, being on the play and having the Daze in hand, going to give him a lot of defense versus any cards that can be deployed by Shawn next turn.
Like, so. And it's so, like, and now this would be the moment where he's just like, man, I really shouldn't have taken that Spell Pierce. Like,
yeah, drawing the Spell Pierce was just, I'm not exactly sure why that happened. He draws the Ponder here, and he knows there's a fetch land on top of his deck, so I gotta believe a crack fetch Ponder is certainly in the cards for Shawn right here. You know, he almost certainly needs to find a Lightning Bolt versus this board. Right now, his Deathrite Shaman is almost completely dead, you know. When your opponent, they talk about the Deathrite Shaman wars, if you have one more Deathrite Shaman than your opponent, you know, you get your activation off, or you can turn your opponent's activations off.
Yeah.
And in response to whatever they're trying to eat, you know, if they're trying to eat a land or a spell, you can go ahead and use your Deathrite Shaman to eat it in response, so. Relatively tough line for Shawn, and we see Elliot Fisher's going to go ahead and eat in response, so very nice. I think he's making a black. He does have that Dark Blast ready, so any amount of Young Pyromancers developed by Shawn are going to get met with a -1/-1 effect right away.
Yep.
Wow. And there's, you know, I think Shawn's going to try to Ponder here. He did crack the fetch though, so yeah, Shawn knows that it's emergency time. He's got the Tropical Island at the forefront. You know, being able to gain 2 life is a big gain, but right now, okay, it looks like he's going to go for the black land instead. Right now, he just needs to figure out how to deploy his Grimag Angler. I think that's his biggest ticket to win.
Mm-hmm.
And Elliot, I mean,
it's very
painful truths.
I think that's totally fine here.
Yeah, it's a start.
Except for when that happens.
Yeah, it's not.
Now, did he pay the? He did pay the. Yeah, so he's gonna.
So he's gonna go back up. He's gonna go back up, right? Wow. So I mean, and Daze, of course, is so powerful, right? Like countering a spell, making a 1/1 there is just so absurd. And there's not really a lot Shawn can do here. I think he just can sit back and watch. He really needs to find a card like Damnation, or I think the other card he needs to.
That is the card of the day. Damnation.
Yeah, the card of the day is certainly Damnation. I think
Legacy
the other
Preservation Series, the Damnation edition.
Most certainly, I think the card that Shawn really wants to find is like Fire Covenant. Fire Covenant would probably be the biggest game that he. I mean, like that's what he needs. I mean, honestly, he needs a board sweep. He needs a way to deal with the board, and he doesn't play any. I think the closest thing he has is like a Fork Bolt. So, Elliot Fisher's gone and fetched out a Underground Sea, and I believe that's unlimited. I could be wrong.
Which one?
That one right there on the
Underground
left.
Sea?
It's a little bit darker in terms of the color versus the Underground
It could be the
Seas.
light, but I would be inclined to agree.
Yeah, it looks like it's an unlimited one. It looks very nice. I will be honest. I'm a big fan of unlimited cards. I'm also a big fan of whiteboarded cards. So hopefully we'll see a few of those.
So much so that you will do it yourself.
Right. And we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see Dark Blast being cast on upkeep. Elliot's going to go ahead and do the dredge trick. Make a guy. Wow, and Dark Blast really showing how powerful it can be. He's gonna. He dredges the True Name though.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you really think he needs it at this point?
I don't think he needs it.
Shawn even called it.
Yeah. Yep. Good guy, Shawn. Spewing out the tokens. You know, let's have
all the colors.
There's sometimes when I'm playing Magic and my opponent doesn't have their own dice and I'm losing really bad. I'm like, can I use a dice? And I'm like, no, dude, get your own dice. That's when I get really, like, when I'm feeling really bad about how I'm losing, I'm like, no, man. Like, when the Storm player is going off, it's like, you should have your own dice, man.
Especially for a deck like Storm.
Yeah, seriously. Guys, this is, just bring your own dice when you come to a tournament and you need...
Hashtag be prepared.
Hashtag be prepared. You know what's funny though is there's another combo player, Feline Longmore. Yeah, she is always prepared. And she is always fully loaded.
I remember the one time that I played Feline was at it was like the Legacy side event precursor.
Yeah.
To the Star City Open. And
yeah, that's right.
I'm punishing Chuck. The entire time Feline was worried because the first thing I do is I go Swamp Thoughtseize and she thinks I'm on box. We all know she's on high tide because that's what
right, of course. That's her deck of choice.
Most carefully, eventually finally sees something where it's just like, oh, cool, that's not what you're playing, this is what you're on. Cool.
You're dead.
Yeah. And I don't know if I haven't seen Feline in the area more. At one point, I saw her go to the Midwest for an extended period of time.
Yeah, that's right. She bounces around a lot.
Yeah,
most certainly.
but it's so... Especially in this case, she doesn't need it. she has the calculator in her head.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
And with a deck like High Tide, it is so ridiculous, and it's so cool because with High Tide, it's one of those decks where it's just like you want to wait till the very last minute to go off, just so you know you got it.
Right. That calculation of knowing when you're in danger.
Yeah.
Right. That's a calculation that she has down to a T. She knows that at a certain point, when am I in danger? When am I going to die? When do I need to go off? And the thing about it is, there are certain High Tide decks, the historical ones in general. I think at one point, what was the card? Time Spiral was actually banned.
Yep.
It was banned and actually recently got unbanned in the last 6 years or so.
All the more prominence to High Tide.
Right, absolutely. And what's really interesting about it is the High Tide deck. So the High Tide deck originally was called Solidarity, and it would actually go off at instant speed. It played reset
on your opponent's turn.
On your opponent's turn when they had lethal on the table. So it was very powerful in that regard, and it had access to so it had High Tide, reset, turnabout. Every spell, every cantrip it played was an instant. It played Impulse as well. Impulse, of course, blue and a 1. Impulse as well. And it would actually just couple together a really fast Brain Freeze, and then it would play Words of Wisdom, or Words of Wind, and I believe what would happen is both players would draw a card, and your Brain Freeze would just kill them. So it was a very strong deck. That being said, that deck has actually gone away and died with the promotion of Time Spiral, right? And Time Spiral, of course, untapping six lands and generating a whole ton of mana is just really powerful and very hard to deal with. It also has Candelabra of Tuanos, which is basically another untap effect. It was almost the same effect that replaced Reset. And what's really interesting about it is when you play a turnabout, rather than turnabouting your own lands, you can actually turnabout your Candelabras, and that actually generates a whole lot more mana than untapping just your lands. So, somebody that is playing a very strong draw-based combo deck like Feline, the calculator is all upstairs. All the math is already done ahead of time, and I think she also has a math major. She was very prominent in the area and very good at playing the deck. That being said, unfortunately, High Tide has kind of gone and died away from the metagame, and it really is non-existent with the prominence of Counterbalance being played so often now. Counterbalance, Sensei's Dividing Top, the Miracles deck. That being said, getting back to what's actually going on here, we see a lot of sideboarding going on for Elliot Fisher. A lot of Dazes and Forcibles moving in and out of the board. I think the Forcibles are actually coming in. The Cabal Therapies are coming in. So it looks like what's cool about this is Elliot's switching from a permission-based deck to a more value-based deck. He's going to have less counter magic, less Force of Wills, less Dazes, and he's going more towards... He's bringing in a lot more of his Cabal Therapies. Some of his Force of Wills are staying in, which could be pivotal if he has more of a long game. 5 mana. Tapping 5 for Force of Will is not bad in a top deck game. That being said, if you're in a top deck game versus a Grixis Delver deck, sometimes that's not a favorable position for anybody.
No.
So, there's a couple different plans going on there, but the Cabal Therapies are certainly a big hit. It might just be one of those issues where if I'm playing the mirror and my opponent has Cabal Therapy in, and I see that I don't have Cabal Therapy in, maybe I'm supposed to bring it in.
Yeah.
Maybe I am. Certainly a little bit of psychological warfare going on right there. I think Elliot Fisher took game 2, by the way, Judge.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I was looking at the blue numbers, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, that's totally fine.
Most certainly. So both, right now, obviously when we bring you these feature matches, we're going to try to post as many undefeated players as we can. Everybody that's playing well, that's at the top of their game. So. And
again, 51 players, so we're going to see six rounds of Magic plus a cut to top 8. Prizes for today, what they're going for is first place is going to get
250.
First place, I believe, is 400 in store credit.
Very nice.
Second place is
handsome prize.
200. Third and fourth are each going to receive 100.
And then
fifth through eighth is going to receive 50.
50.
We do because we charge a little bit more for this because we have a very nice tournament space. If you've never been here before.
It's a premium event. To be in all honesty, it's a premium event. It's the price payout is very good. And like the using credit at Card Kingdom, I mean, like you have access to any card you'd ever want to buy. So it's a nice space. There's a bar that you can go ahead and use your credit. So if you like top 8 and you don't qualify, you can just go in and get a beer and get some food, make yourself feel a little bit better about not winning the event.
With our space, I mean, we cap our events at 128 players.
Yes,
that's a lot of players.
That's a lot
to have an event in house.
Oh, if you want to talk about the marquee places to play in the area, I am a participant. I play a lot of Magic. I play a lot of Legacy, and this is certainly the best place to play. This is the quintessential, like, if you want to go and play Legacy, if you want to go and play Magic, play a Mox Boarding House. They got you covered.
Yeah. So if we do end up with 72 players, which we didn't today, we double our entire prize purse.
Right.
So we put it to a 2K, so instead we pay down to the top 24
right.
instead of the top 16, and it's 500, 300, 150.
Yeah.
I believe 75, and then
I think the only reason why we're a little short on players right now is simply because we have there's Eternal Weekend going on right now.
It is kind of the holiday season. People leave to college.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And like, I guess Halloween's right around the corner.
Yep.
For what it's worth.
Especially tonight.
So, especially tonight.
I'm wearing a Magic Judge costume.
Can I get one of those?
Yeah, I can get you there.
I mean, like, I need a costume. I need a costume.
Oh, I don't have anything else on me.
Dang it!
I have a red panda one.
I would totally give it back to you.
Oh, of course.
I mean, like, that's what I need. I need to get it and then give it back to you because I have no costume.
All right, so we got a Gitaxian Probe.
That's right, Shaman on the play. We saw a Gitaxian Probe from Shawn on Elliot. It looked like he had a young Pyromancer and a Forcible in hand.
That Forked Bolt is looking good.
Yeah, that Forked Bolt is pretty gnarly right now, especially because, the main card that both players are going to be riding is Young Pyromancer. Forked Bolt, a solid answer versus Young Pyromancer, and the first token that gets made. So, a big game from Shawn Tabrizi right here, and the Tropical Island being deployed for both sides, actually. Both sides with mirroring starts. Look at that. How nice is that? The exact same 3 cards are being played from both players.
Feels good.
Of course, that parity is going to be lost now with Shawn having a Wasteland in hand, and Shawn being able to play and develop just about any card he wants right here. Deathrite Shaman is so powerful, in fact, that it can make any colored mana it wants. Obviously, I mean, essentially, it's just kind of the next level Birds of Paradise. It also deals 2. It also gains 2.
They're not kidding when they call it a 1-mana planeswalker.
What did they think? What were they thinking of when they made this card? I have absolutely no idea, but they made it, and
here it is.
Good for Legacy, I suppose. I've had my gripes with this card. I've told people about how imbalanced I thought this card is.
What card do you have more issues? Well, I think I already know the answer to this, but what card did you have more issues with at the time? Deathrite Shaman or True Name Nemesis?
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, right. I remember that whole.
It's gotta be True Name. I mean, it's gotta be True Name. And we see Shawn has just destroyed every single permanent on Elliot Fisher's board. Forked Bolt, Wasteland, and Elliot is in the Stone Ages.
This is where Jim Ross would chime in with the "Somebody stop the match!"
Somebody stop the magic. And this kind of shows. I mean, like, both of Shawn's games where he's on the play, he's really been able to leverage his early game advantage. Wasteland, Forked Bolt. I mean, obviously, Grixis Delver is really set up to leverage to take advantage of those situations. But we just see there's just so many cards flying out for Shawn. And not a lot going on Elliot's side. That Forcible, I believe, is stranded in his hand. I don't even know if he has a blue card to pitch to that. So we see an upkeep Brainstorm from Shawn, and I like this play. I like it a lot.
Just gonna set it up. Let's see.
He's gonna force the setup from.
Looks like a Brainstorm, Gitaxian Probe, and 3 lands.
I gotta believe it's gonna be Brainstorm land, and he's gonna go ahead and fetch away his other land, and then he's gonna have a Brainstorm as well. Ready to rock to shuffle away those other 2 lands. I mean, he's got like multiple fetch lands, of course, and so that's obviously really good. He's going to reveal the Gitaxian Probe here, and bashing for 3 is a big game, especially when your opponent has 1 land in play. A lot of lands in play in hand for Elliot, and he's really in a tough situation. Finding a Brainstorm would certainly get him back into the game, but he is behind quite a bit on board development.
Yeah.
That Delver play, I mean. It's one thing to get Wastelanded and Lightning Bolted. It's another thing to get Wastelanded, Lightning Bolted, and have your opponent play Delver, right? So, very tough right now, and I'm not exactly sure where Elliot stands on getting back into the game. It's going to have to start with Brainstorm, most certainly,
and hope that it results.
Yeah, and I, if I'm at this point, I'm on the game plan where I'm just really glad that I've got a feature match. I'm just really underneath the camera.
Put up the high mom sign.
Yeah, it's very tough. I mean, especially because we're in game 3, and it looks relatively grim. Shawn's gonna fire a brainstorm here, and I don't like it. Yeah, I think what needs to happen is he really wants to play his Gitaxian Probe first, and then he needs to play Brainstorm. But Shawn looks like there's a fetch land as well. There's a Delver in hand as well. So I guess the idea there is he wanted to Brainstorm to find another playable spell. Yeah. That being said, the only one that allows him to apply pressure is a Delver's Secrets. So being able to deploy a Delver on this turn or a Deathrite Shaman is, I mean, it's okay, but pressuring your opponent with 1/2 Squires is not the greatest thing in the world. Yeah. If you've noticed at this current board state, Shawn actually does not have any black mana in play, so the Deathrite Shamans are actually not going to be so good. Yeah. It looks like he's
Sorry if I seem a little distracted, player.
Oh, no, he's actually, so right now, the way that we have it situated right now is I'm the caster, and we actually have the TO in the loop right now casting with me, and so it's one of those things where he's actually doing a lot of the scorekeeping duties right now. He's going through a lot of the deck lists. He's looking at a lot of the different player results.
I will let you know right now, players, that will change at the end of this round. Jordan here is actually going to have a real assistant here.
No, I mean, to be honest, Frank, I mean, like me talking and I'm just blabbing away, man. I'm just Magic. I love Magic, and I think everybody that's on the stream and everyone that's at this tournament really loves Magic too. So here we go.
Oh yeah, so Jake McCune is going to be joining us in the booth.
Oh, fantastic!
Yep,
fantastic.
He's going to be the guy.
Jakey Jake. Sitting down, talking about some Legacy. I know he's a big Modern player as well. Yep. He plays a lot around in a lot of the Mox Boarding House, the Card Kingdom circuits, so we see Shawn deploying another Deathrite Shaman, and that's just going to add another power to the table, another card to the table. Man, if I'm Elliot, I just drew a land. I just want to kill myself. I'm just not feeling too good right now. Draws his 3rd Volcanic Island, and that is just that's a tough game. I think if I'm Elliot, I'm really just excited to draw like a card that I don't even own in my deck right now. Yeah. Like if I could draw Fire Covenant, that would be great. That would be great. Lightning Bolt in hand for Shawn, and almost certainly that Lightning Bolt is going to be targeted at the Young Pyromancer. I don't really see another place that the Lightning Bolt can go anyways. So, Lightning Bolt, I think he just has so much gas. I think he has another Delver as well, so. Yeah. Yep. Delver attacks. It is relatively important that both players recognize how much time is left on the clock. Not to say that, either player is playing relatively slowly. It's just, it's important that both players, you can get the round finished in time, especially for Shawn. You can try to close out the game. Second Delver Secrets joins the table, joins the party. Lightning Bolt being cast on. Wow, that is.
And he just has the force.
Yeah, his force and like 5 lands. So a series of relatively poor draws. He peels the Brainstorm, which is the start of the comeback. But in this state, I gotta believe that he really needs to find, and he's tapping the Volcanic Island. He needs to leave the Volcanic Island up in case he finds multiple. Removal spells, and wow, that was the biggest brick I had ever seen.
Which one was?
Painful Truths, Brainstorm, and a fetch land, and none of those do what he wants to do.
Yeah, no.
So, gotta assume he's gonna deploy another fetch land and crack and fire off another Brainstorm, but the noose is tight, and Delver makes it tight relatively quick. So, cracking the fetch here, Volcanic Island on deck, gotta believe. I think, I think the reason why he's doing this is he needs to find, maybe he's looking for Grimag Angler, perhaps. I'm not certain what cards he's implying that he wants to find, but I think Lightning Bolt, or multiple Lightning Bolts, is really where he wants to be at, but I could be wrong. Elliot could have another line in mind.
That sounds right, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't really know what black mana gets you. Black mana really strong at being black, but perhaps not so good right now. I mean, it's not like he has Disfigures or he has Dismembers. He has Dismember in his deck, but that's just about it. cards drawn for Elliot Fisher. It looks like he finds his Dark Blast and he finds a Deathrite Shaman, but both cards are relatively lackluster in this state. Both cards certainly do not deal with the board state. I mean, the Delver in play is just the two toughness is too strong right now.
Yeah.
There's not really a good way that Elliot can answer the board. The Dark Blasts don't really do a lot versus Deathrite Shamans unless he can cast multiple Dark Blasts in the same turn. You know what's really interesting about Dark Blast is that Dark Blast versus Deathrite Shaman. I guess when you cast it, can you hold priority? You can't, right? Like
no.
You have to cast it in your upkeep step.
Yeah.
And when you go to draw,
you're passing priority.
You're passing priority. So yeah, they can actually eat the Dark Blast before you draw it for turn. So it's relatively questionable whether that card's like insanely good versus Deathrite Shaman. Obviously, it's good versus Young Pyromancer and also versus Delver's Secrets.
Yeah.
Pre-flip, so maybe that was the implications in bringing it in, but right now it just seems like there's not a lot going on for Elliot Fisher, and that's unfortunate. We'll see the Dark Blast being cracked right away on this Delver's Secrets, and that's going to stem some bleeding, but
probably a little too late here.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just too little too late. He needs to find his Lightning Bolts, his Pyroblasts, but was unable to do so, and I think his draw has really reflected how poor his poor draw has really reflected his current state of the game. So unfortunate, but sometimes there's just not a lot you can do. And Shawn's gonna get in with the Squire.
Okay.
Just I thought he had another land, but I guess maybe he doesn't. Deathrite Shaman is in hand, and the untap from Elliot. Painful Truths is the draw. Almost just trolling him to say, "Play me, please."
Still had all these.
And what's kind of funny about it is if Elliot had access to, I think the only way he could have stabilized there is if he played Painful Truths and drew 3 and found a Firestorm. I think a Firestorm would have been able to be cast and killed all of the creatures and play for Shawn, but that's certainly not the case, and that's the end of round 2. We're going to go ahead and flip it back into the casting booth for you guys really quickly.
Hey guys, what's up?
That was the end of round 2, guys. That was a mirror match of Grixis Delver.
You know, and it's unfortunately on the grounds that it's just like, with how that last game kind of ended up, where it was just, Shawn's got everything, and Elliot didn't.
It was one of those things where, you saw in Game 1 and Game 3 how the play was so impactful for Shawn.
Yeah.
He was able to take early advantages. In Game 1, he was able to get down an early Deathrite, or an early Young Pyromancer. In Game 3, he was able to deploy a big board of Deathrite Shamans, and he had that one really pivotal turn 2 where he played a Delver's Secrets, a Wasteland, and a Fork Bolt, and just completely destroyed all permanents in play for his opponent, for Elliot.
And it's kind of hard to beat that.
To be honest, that's the reason why you play Deathrite Shaman and Lightning Bolt and Wasteland in the same deck. Sometimes you can just take everything out and you can go ahead and develop your board.
Right,
so.
and despite all that, we still, those first 2 games were excellent.
Yeah, they were
great games.
very hard fought.
Yeah.
There was a lot of play on both sides, and I think Game 1 could have been regained by Elliot if he were to play the Scream Mag 1 turn earlier.
Yeah.
At that point you kind of have to say, I'm at a low life total. I really have to go for it, and I can't take any more damage.
No.
But it was unfortunate. But in the end, Shawn was able to put it away with a really nice win in 3.
Yep, and he's gonna go to 2-0 for the day.
Very strong start,
That's a very good start.
Yeah, so a very good start. He's halfway home. If he can win the next 2, he can draw, and be in the top 8.
Yep. So we got just over a minute left in round 2. We're gonna take a quick break.
That's
We'll
right.
see you guys ready to go for round 3. Again, I'm gonna step out. We're gonna go take over to somebody that can actually cast, and that's gonna be Jake McCune. Hey Jake, come on, step in, say hi,
Okay.
give a wave.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
he's right here.
I was gonna wait till we went back to things.
No, okay, he's right here. That's Jake McCune.
Hi,
Jake McCune,
I went next
ladies and
to
gentlemen.
decided to help out because Frank's pulling like all the duty right now.
Oh, no.